I'd like to call the Tuesday, February 16, 2016 Papillion City Council meeting to order. Ms. Rogers, would you please take the roll?
Florence, Mumgard, Gaines, Glover, Jaworski, Klug, Stubbe, Ingberg.
Thank you. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have an affidavit of publication on file? And a current copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the back of the council chambers. We've got a special presentation tonight. I'd like to invite Doug Huggins and Karen Ritz to join me. Share a few words, and I'll have Doug share a few as well as Karen, but want to present to the Turcher family via Karen some special recognition because of some things they've done. But on behalf of myself and the City Council, just really want to thank you very much. This family has had tremendous ongoing support for the Sumter Amphitheater. As you know, Amphitheater and then the Tur, so Sumter. It's both the Sump family and the Turcher family. And those were the two ones that gave tremendous support, and Turchers have continued to provide that support. And I think everybody knows how much the amphitheater has impacted quality of life in the community, families, seniors, and everything else. Plus, it's also got a big economic development impact with people coming into town, which allows us to continue to reinvest. I tell people, and I think Doug would agree, it is probably one of the top amphitheaters in the region. From what I understand, Chicago to Denver, Sioux Falls to Kansas City, it's probably in the top 2 or 3. That's the quality that we have here. And a lot of that is because of the continued support we've had from the Turcher family. Wes and Ruby had a passion for the arts and for making Papillion a better place. If you know Wes's history, he probably built most of the original town, and they continue to build it as well. 2014, they gave a $10,000 donation to us, and I think we recognize that here. That added a lot of safety lighting and improved access features, but they've also given another donation to the city, and I'd like Doug maybe to make a couple comments.
Well, to just pass on what the mayor said, we're very proud of the Sumter Amphitheater, and as a recreation department, we take a lot of pride in the things that we can do for recreational programming, especially for the local area. And we've had just a wonderful opportunity to build up a relationship with the Turcher family, and it is just especially nice that to have that relationship and that partnership to help make the recreation department and the Sumter Amphitheater a better place and to provide better services for the citizens of Papillion and the Omaha area. And just would like to say thank you very much. So,
got 2 things that I want to present. First one is an official proclamation, and I'd like to go ahead and read it. Whereas Wes and Ruby Turcher and their family have been leaders in the Papillion community and committed to improving our city's quality of life, and whereas Wes and Ruby Turcher were instrumental in building Sumter Amphitheater, adding vibrancy to our community, and whereas Sumter Amphitheater is a valuable gathering space for residents of all ages and a home for the arts in Papillion, whereas Sumter Amphitheater has become a premier outdoor entertainment venue attracting nationally recognized talent and visitors to our city, and whereas the Turcher family has remained committed to enhancing Sumter Amphitheater for the benefit and enjoyment of our community. Now therefore, I, David P. Black, Mayor of the City of Papillion, do hereby present the key to the city to the Wes and Ruby Turcher family, in witness whereof I have hereunto set the hand and caused the official seal of the City of Papillion to be affixed the 16th day of February 2016.
Thank you.
And this is the key to the city. We're giving it. If people think of the history of this, though, this is the only, Dan and I were trying to figure it out, it's only the 4th one we're aware of that's been given out, and only the first one to a resident. All 3 have either been long-time serving employees or people that have been important to the community for another reason. So that's actually the first one outside the city that we've given that we're aware of.
I just love this.
You'll share a few words?
Well, thank you all very much. I've had a lot of fun talking with Doug over the last few years, and Carl has been very helpful via the telephone several times. But it really is our pleasure and our privilege to continue to support the Sumter Amphitheater and a whole decade. I mean, it's really hard to believe that it's been a decade. And I want to really thank the City Council for your stewardship and your community service. And I know that Wally and Elaine and my parents are just really happy with what's happened and never would have dreamed it would be such a lovely venue. But thanks for doing everything you do to put Papillion in Money Magazine. That was great. And we'll look forward to the next decade. Can't wait to see what it brings. But thank you very much. This is just lovely. Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
Mr. Hoynes, Administrator's Report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. The city attorney just asked me if we, during our presentation, ever discussed the substantial donation, but for the mayor and council, it was $100,000, the most recent donation. So it's not only heartfelt, but thank you. On to some really more boring things here. So I hate to sound somewhat redundant in these presentations on legislation, but I want to make sure that you're kept up as a city council. The two important ones, the learning community legislation and the property tax legislation. The learning community first legislation, there's 4 bills that have been introduced that will be heard next Monday at the Education Committee. I would also like to point out that this year, Dr. Rickley has been a very strong communicator and advocate and partner with the City of Papillion and working with us. He met as recently as yesterday afternoon with Mayor Black and I to discuss the particulars of the legislation and the importance to the city and the school district. That resulted in Mayor Black agreeing to testify in support of 2 of those bills before the Education Committee next week, LB's 903 and LB's 1067. The short version, those 2 particular bills, not everything we wish we had in terms of moving boundaries, but it does remove 8 legitimate steps of bureaucracy and reduces it to, if 2 school districts agree, the boundaries will move if either one of those bills passes. And so that is certainly far better than we have today. The other one, the property tax bill, LB 958, it hasn't made it out of committee yet, but I know that there's strong efforts by the governor's office and the legislature to get it out of committee. It could come out of committee as early as this week and be prioritized. If that, we continue to work with not only the United Cities, but the League of Municipalities identified it as their primary focus this year to make sure that that legislation doesn't pass because of its draconian nature to city government, and we're working with the Central United Cities, Hastings, Kearney, Grand Island, to try and do our best to protect our ability to continue to run a city, quite frankly. But again, if either any of you folks hear anything on those legislative issues or talk to your representatives, please feel free to express our positions on those. Also, more on a local level, I believe as early as next week, February 22nd, we could be removing trees on Schramm Road. I always call in the afternoon to check with the department head to see if I can commit to a time frame, and that always makes our engineer really nervous. He says, well, all things being equal, we hope to have that road done this year, but he really wanted me to emphasize we have eminent domains and some, or maybe not eminent, we've got to get the property through negotiations with the landowners, but I know Jeff's paying a lot of attention to that and others are helping him. We're also, I haven't mentioned, if you weren't aware, we are in day something or another of the trial with Ryan Katz on the special assessments. And Carlos spent all day there again. We hope that trial wraps up this week. And again, that's his opposition to the, I think the $300,000 and some odd special assessment we levied a couple of years ago. Conclude my report, Mr. Mayor, by advising the council that St. C's is celebrating this week its 100 years in Papillion. It's pretty substantial. They're doing so in a couple of different manners. The first one's an open house on 2/21 from 10 to 2. And the second one they wanted us to be aware of is that on the 24th, the Archbishop will actually be attending a Mass at St. Columbia-Kiln. So pass that on if you're free at any of those points or want to recognize those people. I'm sure they would appreciate. 100 years is a long time. So that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion. I missed it. Motion by Mr. Stubbe. Boy, I'm losing my hearing. Second by Mr. Ingberg. Do we have any proponents? Do we have any opponents? Any council discussion? Please vote.
Eight yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Next is item F1, Resolution R16-0023, a public hearing and a vote. A resolution to approve the 1 and 6 year road plan. This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Do we have any proponents? Anybody want to speak in favor? Do we have any opponents? I'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to approve resolution R16-0023? Motion by Councilwoman Klug, second by Councilman Florence. Any council discussion or questions? Mr. Glover.
Quick question. When I looked through the report, I noticed we were going to do some repairs on the overpass. I don't remember if that was this year or the next year, but my question is that the city of Papillion's overpass? Do we build that?
That is the state of Nebraska overpass that they've kindly mandated you take care of.
Okay. I was, enough said. Thanks.
With no additional funding, I might add.
Any other council comments? If not, please vote.
Eight yeas, 0 nays.
We have a very short agenda tonight. That's all the regular agenda items, and no committees have met. Do we have any comments from the floor? I see somebody moving. And when you come up, if you would tell us your name so we have that for the record.
Hello, my name is Drew Darnold, and I am here today to talk about the sports facility. I am very excited to learn that the city had already thought of building a new sports facility that would improve the quality of and increase the number of soccer fields. However, I think the city should make sure that there are some places for kids to play and practice soccer anytime they want. My friends and I really like to play soccer, and there is really no place to play when we want to play or practice outside of our organized team activities. I think that a complex like this will be good for hosting tournaments. This will earn the complex more money and bring people to Papillion who will spend money at our stores and restaurants. So Papillion will get sales taxes from people who don't live in Papillion. My teams have gone to tournaments in Kearney, Des Moines, and St. Louis. When we go to these tournaments, we have to spend money on hotels, restaurants, gas, and other fun team activities. I think some of the fields should be for games and some for practice, so the facility wouldn't get as crowded as other facilities, and so that the fields wouldn't get as beat up. My friends and I think there should be a place to play football in the new complex. Also, we think that part of the golf area should be for putt-putt so that little kids can play too. Thank you, Mary Black, for responding to my letter and inviting me to tonight. Also, thank you to the city council for listening to my ideas. Does anyone have any questions or comments about my ideas?
Mr. Mumgard.
Yeah, I do.
A couple weeks ago, we voted not so much to build that, but to go out, have something on the ballot for the election to ask the citizens if they want to pay for it by increasing the sales tax. I take it you've probably gone out and bought things, haven't you, here?
Yes.
So you know what sales tax is?
Yes.
Okay. And so we're going to go next spring and give the people who live in Papillion the opportunity to tell us whether they want to have to spend more money in their sales tax or not. And we said, well, if they spend more money in the sales tax, we'll build something that you just talked about. So really what we're going to be talking about is how buying things in Papillion will be more expensive than it is now. But I take it you're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do you think you think you're willing to go out and tell neighbors that they should vote for the sales tax?
I definitely would.
Okay. I assume you're not a registered voter, right?
No.
Okay.
Sadly.
Soon you will be, I'm sure. Why is it okay for taxes to be higher?
Because I know people have been asking, Mayor Black told me in a meeting before that he would be putting in stuff for lots of people to be using. So I think it would be a good idea to make this new facility and vote for it to be okay to raise the sales taxes.
A lot of people tell me they don't like higher taxes. Have you ever heard the saying, you can't get something for nothing? Maybe your parents have told you that, but that seems to be one of those rules of life. You don't get something for nothing. And, I can tell you, we're not going to build what you're talking about if people don't want to spend more money in taxes. So you're willing to go out and tell people how if they spend more in taxes and they vote for this next spring, that'll make your life better? Yeah?
Yes.
Well, that's a very adult way to look at it. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing your speeches out there on the campaign trail.
Thank you.
Mr. Jaworski.
Where are you going? I just want to touch base too a little bit. I do appreciate you coming up here talking about that because it is very important, not only for the kids but for the seniors and everybody that's going to be involved in this. And what you're asking for is going to be coming if it does pass. So by you be willing to come up here to talk is kudos for me. And I think going out and sharing this with your friends and having your friends just widespread it and keep passing it on to everybody, that's a very good start to everything coming true. And if it does come true, you guys are going to be very, very happy. So thank you for coming up.
Thank you again, Drew. Drew is 9 years old in the 4th grade, and that was his initiative to come up and speak. But I did share with him that we did have the youth perspective on the subcommittee, so I told him we'd take his voice just as serious as anybody else's. So thanks again. Any council comments? Mr. Mumgard.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment just for a second on something I see on the agenda here that I find meaningful and important. The presentation for the Turcher family recognition, and then secondly, reappointing Mr. Ken Molzer to the Papillion Arts Council. I look at those two things on the agenda and I remember back, and perhaps Councilmember Ingberg goes back this far also, when I first started on this council, it was about the time that they just started talking about creating that dam that made the lake, that made the park, that where the Sumter Amphitheater is. And I remember one day driving out there around the dirt roads and looking down at that valley and thinking, what the heck are they talking about? What are they going to do? Well, the rest is history. The city council did it, the city did it. They built the dam, they built the lake, they built the park. And then one day I was out there and there stands Ken Molzer out there in this field. And I stopped and was talking to him, and he was talking. I had a lot of history with Ken Molzer and his amphitheater that he wanted. it moved around town a lot at those times. There was always, it seemed like every year there was a new plan of where it was going to be. And he's standing out there on this field on the kind of on the west side of where that lake was going to be. And he's telling me how he thought that was the great place to put his amphitheater. And I thought to myself, what the heck is he talking about? This is just, a field with some trees here and not even much of a hill or nothing. Well, the rest is history. We had good people like the Turcher family came along, and as I said, you don't get something for nothing. Somebody had to pay for this, and they provided money, and it's a heck of an amphitheater. And now I go out there and I see, on free movie nights, I see this place full of families and kids running around having a great time. Or even on concert nights when there's national bands out there, and the place is full of teenagers and older having a great time. Most of those people, I just take it for granted that park's there and that amphitheater's there, and this is just the way we live life in Papillion. Mr. Ingberg probably has the same feeling as me as I look back and think, man, I'm an old timer. I remember when I stood there and looked at that empty valley and thought, what the heck are they thinking about? I sure am glad they thought about it. And so having both those things on the agenda tonight reminded me of those days. I just wanted to comment and say thank you for people like Ken Mulzer and the Turcher family and the wise people that were served on the council with me who thought this was a good idea, even though silly old me was saying there saying, what the heck are you talking about? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ingberg.
Just a quick mention because, of course, all the people that put financing into this project to make it a reality, what it is today, I roll it back, as you do, to Ken Mulzer. My situation was a little bit unique because for 30 years I lived directly across the street from Mr. Mulzer. And I will tell you, nobody is more dogged when they were trying to get this amphitheater in. Every year we changed the locations on him, and he would, okay, well, maybe we'll do it there. And I will tell a little story on him in that he had to have radar someplace on his house because every time I left my house and walked out my front door, he came across the street and very politely asked me how much money we were going to give him that year. And it was kind of a running thing with he and I on a regular basis over the 23 years I've been on the council. He lived across the street all of about 1 year of it. And he was always in pursuit of building that. And at the very end, when it was really came to fruition, what we see today, one of the last conversations I had with him before he moved, he met me out in the middle of the street, and I said, "Don't ask me for any more money. Your amphitheater is up. Now it's a matter of improving it and maintaining it." He said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "I had to think of something to come bug you about." But he really was the driving force from day one when no one else, quite frankly, were sure we needed it. We used to have a bandstand down in the park that was washed away in a flood. And there were a lot of people back when this first became an idea that thought that was all we needed. And thank goodness for his vision that we have what we have today. And Lori and her staff and Doug, of course, have made that a venue that competes with any in the region. So I wanted to mention that.
Mr. Jaworski.
Not to take away from anything that was just said there with Mr. Mumgard and Mr. Ingber, but the same vision is going on right now with the community center. When this thing does get built, and 10 years down the line, Mr. Mumgard, you're going to say again, wow, what were these guys thinking?
You're right, Mr. Jaworski. It's easy for me to look back and think what good decisions were made that led to that park and that amphitheater and the quality of life that Mayor Black spoke about. And I truly do hope that at some point in the future there sits a council member sitting here thinking, what the heck were they thinking about when they thought they could raise $45 million in sales taxes and build this nice palace of a recreation center and let people like Drew come out there and play in it. You're exactly right. I hope that's the attitude that the voters take next spring.
Had a busy couple of weeks, just a few updates from it. Had a couple of ribbon cuttings and grand opening. I know some of you were at it. The nice thing is they were all downtown Papillion. So again, it tells you what's still going on down there. Ribbon cutting at Gina V Physical Therapy. That's the last open bay in Barney Shive's old grocery store. And then a grand opening at the Faintest Breeze. The nice thing about that is that's a business that had started about a year ago, and they needed to expand, so they actually moved to the north side of the bridge and took over an old industrial building that had been vacant for a while, and so now it's a retail boutique, and they've got some plans for what they're going to do. Went out to Walnut Creek Elementary, talked to a class out there. Mr. Hoynes and I met with Andrew Rainbolt from Sarpy County EDC. There's a new contractor that's coming into the Omaha market, but they've been Nebraska-based and doing a lot of work in Lincoln, so they wanted to understand the market and our growth and that, so they Hossman Construction, and I think they'll be a good partner into the future. Went and spoke to the Downtown Business Association and the Papillion Senior Center. Trent has me going to 22 different organizations to give an update on the sales tax to educate so people can make an informed vote one way or the other. I think everybody's got that schedule, but if you don't, let Nicole know and she can let you know when those are. But if that's now started. We had an annual luncheon for the personnel committee for all the employees to tell them thanks for what they've been doing, and also gave the same presentation to the employees that I've been giving to the other groups. I think a number of you were at the Sarpy County Economic Development's annual meeting, and if you remember Toby Churchill, Toby's had a lot of health issues, and he was able to be there and got a Lifetime Achievement Award, so that was nice to see. Number of us, planning, building, engineering, legal, administration, and myself met with a number of representatives from the development community. We reached out to a number of the developers that work with us, and we just had an open brainstorm session, a little bit of how are we doing? How are we to work with? How's our processes? Are we efficient? Where do you like working with us? Where do you get frustrated with us? And we had some really good dialogue and got some really good feedback. And actually, I think we got a message. We're doing some things really well, and with just a couple of very minor tweaks, we can probably be doing excellent. So that we just had that this week, and I want to thank the development community for that. Dan mentioned that legislature's in session. We had a United Cities meeting again this week. Most of that was around the learning community, but we do get regular updates on what's going on with the legislature. Priority bills, I think, need to be established in the next 2 to 3 days. So that'll be the priority status, and then we'll really know where the legislature's going. So if you have any questions legislatively, let Dan or I know. And then had the honor of spending some time tonight with Drew, and he was educating me on what the youth think about taxes and what the needs are, and needs versus wants. So thank you for that time as well. Appreciate that. What's that? Employee of the Year. Oh yeah. We also at the employee luncheon gave Employee of the Year, and Tammy from Recreation was able to get that, Tammy Phillips, so that was a very nice honor. And Employee of the Year is a recognition from the peers, so that was very, very nice that she got that. Any other council comments? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Councilman Glover. Second. Second by Councilman Gaines. Please vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
We are adjourned.